Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for stopping by, and today I do have a project share and a tutorial for you guys, and this is also a design team project for AngeldreamCraftsKim on Etsy. And again, if you are new to AngeldreamCraftsKim on Etsy, she does sell laces, trims, bling, embellishments, doilies, appliques, flowers, paper, just to name some of the items that she sells. And if you open up the description box, I do have a link for her store on Etsy, along with links for her other social media sites. And I also have links for the other ladies who are participating in her design team. They do come out with some wonderful projects, so if you are not subscribed to their channels, I definitely recommend it. I did want to share with you guys a couple of the highlights of items that Kim carries in her store that I used on today's project. Kim does carry some beautiful tulle trim, and she does have it in a wide variety of colors, but on today's project I did use the pink and kind of a mint green, Tiffany blue type color trim. It just kind of depends upon what you pair it with, what it looks like. Sometimes to me it looks blue, and then when I worked on today's project it definitely looked more of a mint green, so it just kind of depends on what project you're working on, what kind of color that looks like. I also used some of this trim. Again, it has little polka dots on it, and it's tulle trim, so that's really nice. These ones are 2-layered trims. This one's just a single one. I also used applique, and she has a ton of fun appliques in her store, and this is a particular one that I love. It's a heart-shaped one, and it has a little flower in the middle of it, a little 3D flower. I did use several cotton trims that Kim carries in her store, this beautiful cut-apart flower one. I also used this trim right here, and I did cut this one apart too, so let me find a hole. As you can see, I've cut out some of the flowers on that one, but here's what it looks like when it's in its entirety. And I use flowers from up here and that one too in particular. And then I also use this cotton trim, and I use the leaves and maybe the flowers that were on this one. So the leaves right here and the small flowers, but this one's a really nice one too with the large flowers on this one. And then a couple of the embellishments that I use, she does carry these gorgeous glass cabochons, and she has a whole bunch of different styles in her store, but I did use some that were more of a Shabby Chic style, and then these really fun ones that also are kind of Shabby Chic vintage also, with flowers, and then they also had like the clock or the timepiece on them, and these ones had the flowers on them, so I used those. She also has these really fun embellishments that are fun for cards and different projects, but I did use them on today's project. And specifically I used the pink one, but I did want to show you the silver one. And then also she carries bling in her store, and I used a version of this one, but it was gold instead of the silver. But I used it on today's project, but I happen to still have a silver one in my stash from her store. So I wanted to show you guys that really fun rhinestone bling with the pink heart in the center. So here is my project that I wanted to share with you guys, and again, there is a tutorial at the end of the video, and I've created these really fun heart Valentine's Day ornaments, and I knew as soon as I got my design team package and I saw these really fun heart appliques, I knew I wanted to make them into ornaments or a wall hanging or something like that, because these are really fun appliques to use. And so I did start off with a heart applique, and I cut out some heart material and cut it into a heart shape so that it was slightly bigger than the applique, and I filled them with fiberfill and sewed them up. And I did add the fun tulle trim. They each kind of have a different tulle trim on them. Two of them have this kind of mint green blue color. There's a pink one, and then here was that sheer one with the polka dots on it. And after I did that, I did add flat back pearls to them, and I layered up some of the flowers, cut apart flowers that I cut out from those cotton trims. And I also decided to take it a step further and dye them, and I used re-inkers. And I know last month, if you guys watch one of the design team members last month, Shelly, she also created some really fun ornament, Valentine's Day ornament. So if I remember, I will specifically link that video because she also used this applique on her project, and she also dyed some of her trims too. So you guys can check her video out. And after I dyed and dried my trims, I went ahead and added them onto here. As you can see, the leaves right here, I tried to put behind this little 3D flower so it looked like it was part of that. Added a couple more layers of flowers, and then on top of that, I added some statement pieces. Each one has a glass cabochon on them. They all have the fun little heart, and I just love this heart that Kim carries in her store. It kind of sparkles and it picks up the pink, but it's also picking up some of that mint green blue color also, which is really fun. And I added some flat back pearls from my stash, and then down below I went ahead and added some seam binding, which Kim also now carries seam binding in her store, hand dyed. And then I added another flower, and I also added the fun little rhinestone blings that she's carrying in her store. And I also added a tassel from my stash on each one of these. So they're all exactly the same, just slightly colored. They just look different. Just by changing out the tulle trim a little bit. So this one was the pink tulle trim. And this one I went ahead and started off with a white base heart, where this one was pink. Constructed this one exactly the same. Again, the only difference really is the tulle trim. And then this one I used this really fun cabochon, glass cabochon. And again, this one I did with the pink material also. And this one I used some of that sheer lace on this one. And that's the fun cabochon that I did on that one. And then here was the last one. I did use some more of that same kind of mint green blue tulle trim. And exactly the same. They all have the little bling on the bottom that hangs outside of the tassel. And this one had the little heart on it, flat back pearl. And they all have hangers on them with the seam binding. And this one I used this really fun glass cabochon on it with the butterfly and the roses. And this one again has the clock on it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's project share. If you are interested in seeing how I put one of these together, make sure and stay tuned for the tutorial. Welcome everyone, and today I decided to pop on and share a little bit of a process tutorial. I haven't gotten going on this project, but I thought it might be a good tutorial, and I haven't done one for a while for AngeldreamCraftsKim for my design team. And in my design team package, I did receive 3 of these really cute appliques. They were connected together, and I cut this one off. And when I saw it, the first thing I thought about when I opened up my design team package was I recently received some really fun little heart ornaments from my friend Deanna Marie in a swap that we did. And I thought that these would be perfect for something similar. And so I decided to pop on today and kind of show you my process of trying to create something similar to this using products from AngeldreamCraftsKim on Etsy. And so the first thing that I did is I cut out several hearts just to try to come up with a template. And the first thing I did was I traced around with a pencil just half of this heart. I had a folded up piece of paper, and I traced around it, and then I kept on progressively getting a little bit bigger until I was happy with a heart. And so then I ended up with this heart, which is slightly bigger. And then I went ahead and I traced it onto a piece of cardboard. So this is a cardboard or tag board piece that I had in my stash. So now I have a nice little template, and I just wanted to make sure I had a heart that was bigger than the initial applique, and one that would allow me to sew around it. And so the first step then for this process is going to be cutting out material. So choose a piece of material that you like. I just have this pink and white material that I had picked up at the thrift store. And I'm going to trace around it, and I have this pen. It's an air erasable pen, so it goes on like kind of a purple pink color, and as it dries, it takes like 24 hours or something, it will disappear, or you can also disappear the ink by getting your material wet. And so what the first step then is I'm going to cut out, and I have doubled layer of pink, of my pink material or fabric here. And so I'm just going to trace my template using this pen, because like I said, the marks will disappear over the next 24 hours with this pen. And hopefully you can kind of see a little hints of that on camera. I know it's kind of light, but there is a heart shape on there. And then the next step I'm going to do is I'm just going to attach my two pieces of material together, just so they don't come apart while I'm cutting out a heart here. So in the end, I do want two pieces of heart. And you could use a regular scissors to cut it out, or I'm going to try and cut it out with like a pinking scissors, I think is what this one is called. And so I'm just going to cut out these two pieces of material. After you've cut your two hearts, the next step is going to be to attach your heart applique to the fabric, and you only need to attach it to one. And you need to decide if you're going to glue it. You could use Fabri-Tac glue, you could use a hot glue gun, or you could stitch it with a machine, a sewing machine, or hand stitch it. And I'm going to hand stitch mine today. And so the first step is going to be to place your applique down where you want it on one of the hearts that you cut out. And I'm just going to pin it in place in a couple of spots. So after you've pinned your applique into place, you are going to take a needle and thread. And I did tie a knot at the end of this already, and I'm just using two pieces of thread. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand stitch it down, and I'm going to do this off camera, but I will go around and I'll just put some like running stitches around kind of in the middle of the heart, and then I'm also going to go down and attach some stitches on the ends of the little loops that are up on the top here. And I'm also going to throw in some stitches on some of the leaves and the stems down here on the applique, just so it's down pretty firmly. Again, it's your choice how you want to attach the applique. You can use glue or stitching, or if you're really good with a sewing machine, you can go ahead and do that too. So I'm going to go ahead and hand stitch this on off camera, and then I will be back to show you the next steps. So I did finish attaching the heart applique to the material, as you can see. And then the next step is to, if you want something for hanging your heart, is to go ahead and cut that, whether you use lace or seam binding. And I have some seam binding right here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stitch or sew that into my heart. But then that is, of course, the next step is you need to attach your two hearts together, and you need to decide, first of all, what you want to fill inside of your heart. I'm just going to use some fiber fill, but if you wanted to add like lavender and make it into a sachet or something like that, you could go ahead and do that. But before we stuff it with whatever we're going to stuff it with, we do need to attach our two hearts together. And so you can make a decision if you want to hand stitch, use your sewing machine, or if you want to use glue to glue your edges together. And I am going to do my sewing machine for most of it, and then I'll hand stitch the last little part. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to pin these two together, and I'm going to sew around. I'm probably going to start up right up about here, and I'm going to sew up here, around here, all the way down here and back up, and I'm going to leave a little gap open right here, and that part I will hand stitch, just because you need a space to stick your fiber fill in. So I will go ahead and just pin this with you guys, and then I will go off camera to use my sewing machine. And I'm going to sew, when I sew, I'm going to sew my seam binding in here also at that time. So I will come back and show you guys how I've sewed it shut. Again, right where you can see this colored pin, I'm going to leave that sector alone and not sew right there on my sewing machine, but I'm going to start up here and sew around all the way up to here. And I will be right back after I get that done. So I just finished sewing around all the edges, and I'll show you guys. I started there and I went up and around the heart and around, and then I stopped right there. And so there is a gap right here so that we can fill it with some polyfill, and this is what the bag of polyfill looks like. Those bags usually do have a tool in them. If you want to use it, looks like a little chopstick that you can use to help push in the fiber if you want. And so here's the little polyfill. And usually I just bunch it up into smaller pieces and I just start filling. Like I said, some people find this type of tool easy to use. You could just use it to push it where you want the fiber fill to go. So if you find that helpful, make sure you use that. So after you've added your fiber fill and you're happy, I usually try and push it away a little ways from where my opening is. And you're also going to need a needle and thread, and you can see I've knotted it at the end. And I like to start, I'm going to hold it shut like this. My seams are showing on this one. And so what I like to do is I like to start with my thread and needle. I start just inside of right here and I go up just slightly to where I've already stitched, and I come back out again there. And then my knot will be on the inside so you won't see it. And so I'm going to try and very carefully pinch these edges together, and I'm just going to do a really small running stitch. It's not going to look as nice as what I did on the sewing machine, but it's close enough for me. I know that I'm going to add laces and trims over the edges, so I'm not too worried about how it's going to look. But I just wanted to show you how I started my needle on this. And now I'm going through both layers of the fabric, and I'm just going to go in and out. And like I said, I'm just going to do my best to try and pinch it and go back and forth. And I'm just going to try and do really small stitches the best that I can. And again, I'm just doing my best to sew the two pieces of material together. I'm not an expert sewer or anything. I'm just going in and out is all I'm doing. Doing kind of a running stitch, I guess is what you call it. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to go down a couple more stitches. Just to make sure that it's pretty well secured. And then I'm going to do my best to make a really small knot on the back side. So I have a really tiny knot. I don't know if you guys can see that. And then what I like to do is then I will put my needle in almost where I came up right there, where my knot is, and then I pull my needle like part way through the heart or the pillow here, and I just pull it and I unthread it, and then I just cut off really close right there. so that I leave a tail inside of my little heart. So that is the basic construction of how I put one of these together. And so now the next step is to add a few more final touching details. I'm going to add some laces and trim around the edges. And I'm also going to go ahead and add something fun to the middle of this. And if you want, you can decorate the back side also. But today I'm just going to choose to decorate the front. So I'm going to grab some of my other laces and trims and embellishments for the middle of this. And then I will be right back to show you guys the next steps. So the next step is to decide if you want to leave it as is. If you like a more of a clean and simple look, you can call this good and be done with your project. But I like to add a little bit more, and so I'm going to look at some other laces and trims in my stash from AngeldreamCraftsKim. And the first thing that I want to add is this beautiful tulle trim. And I think I'm going to put it around the edges on this heart. I'm also going to add some more flowers to it, and I wanted to show you guys those. So I'm going to cut out some flowers from these two cotton trims. As you can see, there's a ton of different flowers here to cut out. There's, you know, one right here and the ones on the edge. So I'm going to cut out of that trim. I'm also going to cut flowers out of this beautiful trim. And this one I'm just going to use the smaller ones in here, and then also the leaves. And once I did cut up those flowers that I was just talking about, I did go ahead and I dyed them. So there's I dyed them the color of this tulle trim, and also pink for layering up. And I'll show you guys, for when I dye stuff, I just use re-inkers because I have a lot of them on hand. And so for that, the color of this trim, which is I want to call it kind of a Tiffany blue is what it looks like to me. Or and what I ended up using is this Brilliance ink. It's called Pearlescent Jade. And then for the pink, I mixed these two colors up. It was Victorian Velvet and Spun Sugar from Tim Holtz. And what I do is I just drop some water, you know, a fair amount of water in a container or a baggie. And then I add drops of the ink until I'm happy with the color. And then I usually do a test run and I just try out one little piece of the lace just to see what it turns out. And if I'm happy with it, I call it good. And then here is what the pink one looked like. And this one seems to be a little bit more concentrated because the Brilliance ink is actually a pigment ink, which it makes it a little bit more concentrated of a color. And again, here's what they turned out to look like after they dried. So I think the colors are going to be perfect. And then I also grabbed from my stash, I have some tassels, I have some flat back pearls that I might use. I also grabbed some seam binding, which Kim carries some hand-dyed seam binding in her store. And then I also grabbed some more embellishments that I got in my design team package, and I don't quite know yet what I'm going to use, but I'll just show you what I have here. I have some cabochons, some glass cabochons, which are really fun. I have these fun little hearts, and then also these really cute rhinestone and heart embellishments too. So I'll end up with at least one or two of those items on my heart when it's finished. I'm not quite sure yet what I'm going to use, but I wanted to show you guys. And then I most likely also will be using some flat back pearl on my final project. And as far as glues or adhesives go, I'll be using Fabri-Tac glue and then also a hot glue gun. So my first step is I'm going to go ahead and attach the tulle trim to my heart. And I'm going to start up at the top, and I'm just going to go around and just attach it onto the side right there. And for this, whenever I can, I like to use the Fabri-Tac glue. I just like the way it dries, where the hot glue gun sometimes makes your projects really stiff. So I try not to use a hot glue gun too much, but I'll most likely use it for a couple of the embellishments. And then when I get to the bottom, I am going to just kind of fold it over on itself right here. It'll just give it a nicer edge on the bottom. And I do that a lot when I go around corners on projects, or like this, it's kind of a tip, a point, so you can kind of see I'm just folding it in on itself. And that's just going to give it a nicer look at the bottom. And then I'm going to continue to glue around the rest of it. So now when I get up to the top of the heart, I am going to overlap my fabric or my trim just slightly. Just so, again, it's going to give the top a little bit of a cleaner look. And you won't see the big gap in the trim. So here is what we have so far, and next I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my hot glue gun, and I'm going to attach my flat back pearl trim around the edges. You can also use regular pearl trim, or another option in Kim's shop, she does have some braid trim which looks similar to this, that you could also use the braid trim around the edges and that would look really nice also. So I am going to start up at the top with gluing this down, and I'm thinking that what I'm going to end up doing is just leaving a little space right here, because I'm going to attach a flat back pearl up to the top here, I think, just at the very tip of the heart. So I have to decide on what size I want, because I have a couple different sizes here. So that's what it looks like after you've added the pearl trim. And now next, I think I want to add some of that seam binding at the bottom. And so I already pre-made a bow. So I'm going to add that for sure. And I'm thinking, I really think it would be really cute to hang a tassel underneath there. And then also possibly a flower on top of that, or maybe a flower with a pearl in the middle of that would be cute. So I think that looks really cute. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue it down on here, but I'm going to go ahead and cut off this top part of the tassel because I don't need it. And so that's what we have so far. So next I'm going to go ahead and add some of those cut out flowers from that trim. And this one looks like I need to do a little cleanup around the sides. And I'm going to add these to my composition here. So I'm going to start off, I think, with the leaves that I dyed. And again, I cut that out of the trim from Angel Dreams Crafts. And I want to make, since this is kind of a big flower right here, I kind of want to make this my statement flower, or the center of my little composition. So I'm going to glue down on the sides wherever makes you happy. I'm going to glue down these two pieces of leaves. So I like how that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those down. And again, I'm going to switch back over to my Fabri-Tac. Just because I prefer that. It doesn't make, when I glue stuff down, it doesn't make it as hard. So that's what it looks like right now. I really like how that looks. And then I'm thinking, okay, I have this little bit larger flower. So I might add that right next to here. And then I'll put one of the smaller flowers underneath it. And then I'll go ahead and add this other flower on top. So it's a 2-layered flower. Or I could put this right there and that up there. But I think I like this up here. So I'm going to keep this up here. And so that's how I'm going to glue it down. I kind of like how this one sits right here. It almost looks like it has its own little leaves and stem right there. So I think that looks really cute. And then after we get these glued down, we'll go ahead and add centers to all of our flowers. And so that's what it looks like now. I really like how that turned out. It's so pretty. So now the next step is to decide how I want to do my centers and if I want to add anything more to the heart. And so since this is kind of my main flower on here, this big white one, I want to use something bigger in the middle of that one. And I have a couple different options here. I have this really nice rhinestone charm that I think would look really cute there. I also have these flat glass cabochons, and I love how that one looks. It does have the pink and actually a little bit of that blue color in it. So I think that's what I want to put right there. I like how that looks, and it's kind of a nice statement piece, I think, within all these other little white petals coming out of the flower. So I think I'm going to do that. I could still, if I wanted to, hang down that heart if I wanted to, or add it up down here maybe. That might look kind of cute down there, hanging off the bottom. I have some flat back pearls still, and so I think I'll use one of the flat back pearls on one of these flowers. But then I also have these really fun little pieces also from Angel Dreams Crafts with the little hearts on it. And since this is a Valentine's Day project, I think one of these would be really cute also to add. So I could add that silver one, which is really nice. But I also have this pink one, and I kind of like that one because as I'm sitting here holding it, even though it's pink, it's also bringing out some of the green colors or that Tiffany blue type color right there. So I'm going to add that right there, I think, into the middle of that flower. And I do have a bulb pin or a gourd pin, and Kim does carry these in her store. And so I might add that down here. I don't know yet. So I'm just going to have that sitting here trying to decide if I want to add it or not. But I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. I want to thank everybody so much for watching today. Hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. And again, I do have links listed below in the description box for Angel Dreams Crafts Kim, where you can purchase many of the supplies that I used today on today's project. And also the other links that I mentioned earlier in the video. And so until next time, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and happy crafting.